we are standing in the gym where just within the last 10, 15, 20 minutes, about 2,500 people were cheering loudly for the Secretary and for Mr. Buffett. I'm going to actually let photojournalist Steve Getz zoom in on the podium there, where within the last couple of minutes, the Secretary, you may be able to see, was still shaking people's hands, thanking them for their support, taking, of course, many selfies. As compared to other speeches we've seen in this campaign election cycle, really it seems like this rally, in addition to the convention last week, was focused on positivity, that America's best days are indeed ahead, but that people would be stronger together, as the slogan implies, working together to make that happen. A very personal speech from Secretary Clinton, highlighting many of the same stories that she did in her acceptance speech last Thursday night, sharing stories about her father's small business, speaking to many entrepreneurs in Nebraska and Iowa, how they may be self-reliant, but they don't think they can do it all on their own. And it was a little bit of that tone that Secretary Clinton hearkened back to the founding fathers, that cooperation, steadfastness, responsibility is what this country needs right now, and that she can lead a coalition to do that. Let's take a listen to part of her speech.
You see that across Nebraska. You see people working. I've been in Omaha. I have visited projects, schools, other kinds of nonprofits and institutions where people are working together. That's what we do in America. We see a problem and we say, we'll fix it together. And that's what we're going to do when we get the White House to move us forward in the direction we need to go.
Now, we are taking a live look, of course, at the gym inside Omaha North High Magnet. The school focuses on STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. And as Secretary Clinton highlights that her candidacy has more of a plan, she says, than the Trump campaign, she talked about the importance of education, education in engineering, the sciences, access to affordable college. And she gave a shout out to the team here at North with many students, football players, cheerleaders, many teachers we heard in the audience. Let's listen to what Secretary Clinton had to say about education.
We're going to invest in STEM education, which is part of the mission here. I want us to provide to every student in America the chance to learn computer science like you're doing here at Omaha North High School. We are going to partner with the private sector to train up to 50,000 computer science teachers over the next decade, so they're in the classroom preparing our young people.
Now, of course, another VIP here at today's rally, Omaha's own Warren Buffett. He, you can see from video we may have, entered on stage with Secretary Clinton to thunderous applause and gave a lengthy speech ahead of Secretary Clinton's own speech, attacking Trump, challenging him to open up his tax return, saying that Buffett himself is currently being audited, and that is not a valid excuse to not take those returns public. He said, quote, "You're only afraid if you've got something to be afraid of," end quote. He also said that Trump is afraid of the American people. Now, one of the things that Warren Buffett also talked about in terms of endorsing Hillary Clinton's economic plan, saying that trickle-down doesn't work, but instead the wealth in this country has instead flooded upwards, his words. He said that this is a time where the American people, the American economy need brains, need steadfastness, and also he talked about the comments from the Khan family, the family of a Army captain who died while serving in Afghanistan, who spoke at the DNC last week, who Trump has since created a fair amount of controversy across the country with his own remarks about it. Let's listen to what Warren Buffett had to say about sacrifice in our country.
No member of the Buffett family has gone to Iraq or Afghanistan. No member of the Trump family has gone to Iraq or Afghanistan. We've both done extremely well during this period, and our families haven't sacrificed anything, and Donald Trump and I haven't sacrificed anything. But how in the world can you stand up to a couple of parents who have lost a son and talk about sacrificing because you were building a bunch of buildings?
Now, as part of today's speech, there were a lot of other issues, many affecting the Omaha area and the 2nd Congressional District that they discussed. We'll have more on that, of course, tonight online at 9 o'clock on MeTV Omaha and live again at 10. Part of our Commitment 2016 live coverage inside Omaha North High Magnet. Jeremy Maskell, KETV Newswatch 7.
All right, Jeremy, thanks. So what did the crowd think of Clinton's message?
KETV Newswatch 7's Christina Engdahl has been talking with folks who showed up at today's rally. She continues our team coverage live from North High. Christina.
And guys, I know you just got done hearing from Jeremy Maskell. We are also inside the Omaha North Gymnasium, just a little bit closer to Hillary Clinton's exit point here, where we watched several people, of course, as you guys saw earlier, lining up to take selfies with her. A lot of people very excited to be in her presence, hoping, of course, that she becomes the next president of the United States. Now, there was a lot of energy in here as well. Of course, we had the chance to talk to supporters before and after Hillary Clinton took the stage, and they say that they support her for a lot of different reasons. For example, I talked to a few veterans who say that they would choose her as their commander-in-chief. And we also know that several people actually lined up outside Omaha North early this morning vying for a spot inside the gymnasium. I would say at its max there were a couple hundred people in here, everybody very excited to hear about the issues. They heard Hillary Clinton, of course, talk about middle-class issues as well as gun violence, and I also talked to several mothers who were saying that they wanted to hear Hillary talk about gun violence, that they say that these are the big issues that they want to hear a president address, and they want to know that she can take care of them should she be elected into the Oval Office. I also had the chance to talk with people, again, before Hillary Clinton took the stage, and they tell me why they supported her. Here's what they have to say.
I actually was born into a family with 2 moms, so yeah, I have 2 lesbian parents, and so this is, to me, I want to have a leader for our country that is going to support that.
I have no doubt that she's going to win. All these people here in Omaha, we turned out. I love it.
Right? But it's history right here.
It's history right here, right here.
I also talked to young families, one family who had a little girl with them, and they said that they wanted their little girl to be here to hear Hillary Clinton speaking because they want her to see that this means, of course, that she could even be the next president of the United States. And as you can see behind me here, the crowd is starting to clear out a little bit here, but we have lots of reaction and talked to lots of people about what they thought of Hillary Clinton's speech. We'll have much more on this, guys, tonight at 10. Reporting live at Omaha North, Christina Engdahl, KETV News Watch 7.